Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Q&A session. My name is Reese. I'm a current student here at Western doing my Master of Teaching Secondary. So hopefully this will be my last semester. And then afterwards, I will be working. Oh, I can hear myself.
What subject area?
Yeah, English.
Okay.
Sorry, I just had to mute myself on the other line. I could hear myself. Yeah, so with us today, we have academics from the School of Education. So we have, we're joined by Carol, Hiromi, Katina, and Kay. So Kay is going to go into a bit of a presentation, show you some, I believe, a PowerPoint slide and talk a little bit, and then we will go into answering some questions.
Okay, wonderful. Well, welcome everyone. I'm just going to share my screen. Hope you can see that. I'll just put it on so you can see it in a bit more. There we go. So I'm Kay Carroll and I'm the Director of Secondary at the School of Education. And I'd also like to introduce my colleague as well, Associate Professor Carol Liston from the School of Humanities and Communication and Arts, who's also the Acting Director of Academic Programs for the BA. And we also have, as Reese mentioned, our Deputy Dean from the School of Education, Dr. Katina Zammit, with us this morning briefly. And what I'd like to do is to share a little bit about the pathways to teaching and in particular our Master of Teaching Secondary program, and then give you the opportunity to ask some questions. And Reese, I'm sure you'll help us out with the chat and we can feed some of those questions back into the discussion. So essentially we have a pathway to teaching, and we might invite Carol in a moment to perhaps give us some of those opportunities and a description of that pathway. And then you enter in after your 3-year undergraduate degree into the Master of Teaching Secondary. And that's provided by the School of Education. And clearly you're all very interested to be a secondary teacher. I'm a secondary teacher. My background, like Reese, is in English and in history. And it's a wonderful career. You know, certainly there's a lot of opportunity in schools. There's agile learning, particularly these days, as we've moved into a different way of flipped learning classrooms. And it's a wonderful opportunity, I guess, to work with young people and really see them develop their strengths and, you know, become very capable and, you know, culturally inclusive, and, you know, they learn new creative problem-solving skills so they can really participate. So it's a very rewarding opportunity to be a secondary teacher. I've certainly enjoyed my time in that field. And I know Katina as well is a wonderful teacher and has a background. I don't know whether Katina, you wanted to share a few things about really the satisfaction and the contribution that teachers make.
Yes, thanks very much, Kay. So yes, I'm also have an English background, but also science and maths is an area that I particularly enjoy. It's very, very rewarding to be able to see students grow and learn and take on that, you know, responsibilities as they become adults, as some of you are also taking on those responsibilities as you move towards your HSC as well. So, and obviously we have great times interacting with the students as well in class. Thank you.
Thanks, Katina. So I know this may be a little bit hard to see, but we want to talk about the pathway. Many of you are attempting or have just finished your trials and are moving on to your HSC fairly soon. And you might be thinking about, how do I actually get to become a teacher? What are the steps involved? So I'll just start briefly, and then I might ask Carol if you'd like to add to this. Essentially, you start with your bachelor degree, and it's various pathways that Western Sydney University offer, and that depends on what you want to teach. So if you'd like to teach, for example, in English like Reese, then you would choose a Bachelor of Arts, and that's the pathways to teaching secondary. If, however, you've been doing a lot of business or economics in your HSC, you may choose a Bachelor of Business that also leads on to teaching. We also have the Bachelor of Health Science for those who are very strong in PDHPE or dance or PASS, and that's a dedicated pathway. We have many students, given that we're moving in a STEM direction, that you may be interested in design and technology and all the technology suite. So the Bachelor of Graphic Design concludes an opportunity to go into, for example, design and technology teaching. And then, of course, for all of our scientists, including those who are doing the new investigating science or science extension, we have a dedicated pathway, Bachelor of Science, which also gives you background across the 4 science areas. So that's mainly bio, chem, physics, and investigating science. So it's a really rich pathway to moving into science teaching. And obviously then you move from the undergraduate degree after 3 years into our Master of Teaching program, which enables you to become a teacher. Now I'll stop there and perhaps ask Carol if you'd like to add to that pathways and describe some of the opportunities.
Thanks, Kay. So in the Bachelor of Arts pathway to teaching, this is the area where you would study what we call humanities. But if you're interested not only in English, but in modern history, or from next year, ancient history, foreign languages such as Japanese, Chinese, Arabic, or Indonesian, to become a teacher in those languages, geography and maths, and even a stream for music for secondary teaching. So there are a range of career options there. The design of the degree means that you need to pick 2 areas of teaching. So probably the most important thing is, as Kay said, to work out what you love and what you would like to be able to teach, and then consider how we structure the degree for you to get that outcome. And Hiromi, who is here as well, who teaches in languages and advises, she and I can help sort of package together the type of areas of teaching that you need to study.
Yes, so Carol, it's really important to have a bit of an idea, and often you base that on what you are strong at in the HSC and what you really love and what you'd like to teach, and they become your teaching areas. And you teach when you have your Master of Teaching Secondary. After you achieve that qualification, you end up teaching in those areas, and everyone must have at least a first teaching area, which means they have a depth of study over a 3-year period or a major, so that they're really strong in their background and their discipline knowledge. And then you move into your Master of Teaching. It's a 2-year program. It's a postgraduate program. And if you do a Pathways to Teaching, Carol, you have an opportunity to continue on, or an offer straight into the Master of Teaching. So it's a seamless transition, which is...
Yes, that's one of its advantages, that students can work through their Bachelor of Arts degree to do relevant units that contribute towards their teaching career, and then move automatically, if they pass their bachelor's degree, into the Masters of Teaching. And so they mentally have to be prepared for 5 years of study, don't they?
They do, but you know, we want really dedicated, really thorough, very competent, highly effective and engaging teachers. And to do that, having both an undergraduate and a postgraduate, 2 degrees in a 5-year period or so, gives you that background and that strength. And you know, you come out as a really qualified teacher, ready to begin your career. And that's greatly valued by employers and different schools, because you actually have that application through your masters of what you studied over a period of 3 years in your undergrad. So moving forward, I'd just like to describe a little bit about the opportunities in the secondary program. So we have a 2-year, as we've described. It's 16 units over 2 years. So you basically do 4 units per semester, because that's a question everyone wants to know, how many units or subjects? So that's a full-time load. And we have the Master of Teaching Secondary for those who want to teach, for example, geography or the languages, as Carol described. But we also offer a Master of Teaching Secondary STEM. And that's for those students who may have come through, for example, in the Bachelor of Science, who want to move into STEM, which is science, technology, engineering or maths, and want to perhaps work in a different context, still in a school, but integrate technology and STEM and coding across different key learning areas or subjects. And that is a slightly different entry point, but it still leads to obviously a Master of Teaching qualification in the STEM areas. So there are 2 programs that you may like to consider depending upon your strengths and what opportunities you'd like to pursue. So you can see there the different career options. So there's so many different teaching areas we offer at Western Sydney University. Through our Pathways program, I think we offer everything but marine studies. So if you have an interest in teaching, we can probably provide that for you.
We also can't do woodworking, I don't think.
We offer design and technology, but if you wanted to go into those more practical and applied areas, then we would need to do some cross-institutional, but in the master's program, we actually offer those teaching areas.
Right.
Okay, so we are trying to make sure we have as many different teachers from different areas, and clearly there's areas of need in secondary schools at the moment. What you see there is a bit of an overview. I'm not going to go into it in too much detail because there's some changes that are coming into place for 2021 that you'll be able to take opportunity with. But essentially the program, as I said, has 4 units every semester, and it should give you a background in how do young people learn and develop. So you do a bit of psychology and biology and sociology. You look at the diverse classroom and then how to prepare lessons in a very practical way. Because it's a master's degree, there's a strong research thread. So you look at, educational journals, why teachers do certain things, because teaching today is very much driven by data and understanding how young people learn and how they can learn better and actually have, in terms of high growth or high yield strategies. So the course is very much designed to give you that opportunity to actually research and understand your practice. And then you do these wonderful subjects called secondary curriculum, which is where you get to be that geography teacher or science teacher or maths or music or languages. So whichever combination that you may have chosen or studied. And then of course, what everyone's interested in is the opportunity to do professional experience, which is prac. And we offer 60 days in 2 main pracs, and of course, an additional 3rd prac with community engagement, which basically may be in a school or other educational context where you learn about the other opportunities, extracurricular and support that you can provide to our young people. So I'll move forward. Let's see if it comes. So that's just a brief overview. And when you come to us, we'll let you know what areas you're going to go forward and teach in. And clearly you map that out from your undergraduate. And the placement. So as I said, it's 30 days for each placement, meaning it's 60 days in total that you'll have the opportunity to go into a classroom to teach with the support of a mentor or a supervising teacher, to learn how to actually construct lessons and engaging lessons, work with young people, provide assessment and feedback, and also understand the faculty and the broader culture of the school so you can make that important contribution. We place you in a variety of schools. That could be independent, Catholic or government schools or other religious schools, so that you have a breadth of experience and you will have exposure to teaching both your teaching areas that Carol said you choose from the outset. And it's a wonderful program. And, when you're in the classroom and you can see what you've learned and you can apply that and bring that joy of learning and develop those strengths, it's a wonderful opportunity. And when you finish, you are a graduate teacher ready to step into teaching in a whole variety of contexts. So I'm going to leave it there and then open it up for questions. Oh, there we are. Back to the front page.
Awesome. Thank you, Kay. So we do have some questions in our chat already. So we've got one question. You might have already touched on it, but someone's asked, is there any pathways for mathematics teaching?
Katina, would you like to maybe jump in there because it's all very new and exciting?
All right, so yes, there is. There is a new Bachelor of Maths. Okay, Bachelor of Maths that hopefully will be starting next year. And within that degree, there will be a secondary education major that you can take, and that is going to be the pathway through that particular course. unlike the other degrees, it will not have the title Pathway to Teaching, but it will still have the same opportunity that has been in regards to transitioning into the secondary teaching master's degree as all the other degrees do.
And Carol,
It's very exciting.
It is exciting. And Carol, there's also an existing pathway.
Yes, there's an existing pathway in the Bachelor of Arts pathway to secondary, but my question really is to Katina. Do the students in the new Bachelor of Maths have a second teaching area that they have to do, or is maths going to be something where they can just focus on one area?
Can I jump in there maybe? So they will have the option to do a maths physics, if you like, 4 units or a minor or a sub-major in physics, or the opportunity to do areas in technology and computing. So, you know, those students may want to transition to the Master of Teaching STEM because they would be covering at least 2 of those STEM areas in that new pathway that's opening, or that new degree, sorry, that's opening up.
Great.
It's still going through the approval process.
But there is an existing pathway through the Bachelor of Arts that you can undertake mathematics, and that is currently available.
And it also has the physics sub-major, if that's where you want. But certainly for many students, I think being able to be directed to a key maths major is a good idea.
Awesome.
While we're on, I know you've got many questions that you want to throw at us, Reese. While we're on that, because I was just giving a brief introduction, there are some other new developments that may be of interest to our HSC school leavers. That it is essentially a 3-year undergraduate pathways degree and then a 2-year Master of Teaching. But we have some changes coming through in 2021, which will allow you to possibly accelerate your degree, whether that's because you have a high grade point average, that means you're getting credits and above, or whether that's because you've taken the pathways and you may be able to undertake some of your master program within your bachelor's. So that may accelerate and give you the opportunity to complete what is essentially 2 degrees that normally would comprise 5 years in 4.5 years. So the master's program may be completed within an 18-month time period, which is very exciting from 2021, once all of those have been confirmed, Katina.
In the process now.
So there's a lot of flexibility, and I guess Western Sydney University are constantly adapting their programs so that they are catering to you as recent school leavers and ultimately so you can become graduate teachers. So Reese, over to you. There's probably...
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. So yeah, moving on to the next question. So somebody's asked, what makes teaching secondary at Western Sydney different compared to other universities?
Well, I'll jump in and I'll invite Carol as well to talk about it from the strength of the undergraduate program. But essentially that is it. It is 2 degrees that you come out to be a qualified teacher, and, you know, like any industry, having higher or postgraduate qualifications is a real strength. The fact that you're actually getting 60 days in various school settings, and we place you, and I know because we placed, I think last year, every semester around 300 secondary teachers across 54 different teaching areas. The fact that we have quality and guaranteed placements, and we work with our school partners and we have good relationships, and that we also have academics who have come from teaching, have very strong research backgrounds, and are very current and, you know, contributing to the profession through professional teaching associations or academic journals and conferences. So you have currency, you have relevant teaching, and you come out with a highly regarded qualification, particularly in Western Sydney, but also beyond in New South Wales, Australia, or internationally. Carol, did you want to talk about the strength of the undergrad?
So one of the advantages of doing a Bachelor of Arts as your undergraduate degree is that we focus on the disciplinary content. If you're going to be in a school as a teacher, you need to be able to be in command of all the knowledge that goes within the area that you're teaching. And so by focusing on that as a major area of study in your undergraduate degree, you're really becoming very widely read and an expert in your discipline area, in its methods and in its knowledges. And that makes you a far more competent teacher because you've really studied it in depth over 3 years.
I'd just like to add to that as well, in terms of why Western Sydney is, during your undergraduate degree, you will be taking education subjects, and so you become, connected to both the School of Education and the School of Humanities as well, and you start to develop your peer group, who will be your colleagues throughout your teaching as well. So it's the beginning of your journey towards the profession and becoming an accredited teacher. The other thing that I think is special about Western in regards to secondary teaching, apart from the advantage that you'll be able to have of actually, doing it, getting a 5-year degree in 4.5 years, and the fact that, as Kay mentioned, the scope of the actual subjects that you can become a teacher in. If you want to work in Western Sydney and you want to make a real difference, well, our degrees are targeted towards developing your understandings of working with culturally and linguistically diverse populations of students, and we have a very strong emphasis on social justice as well, and equity, and both from the content within the actual degrees, but also the expertise of your teachers as well.
Great, awesome. Did anyone else want to add anything else?
Maybe another question, Reese, if you've got.
Yeah, you can go on to another question. So another person has asked, can you study to teach PDHPE and science in the 5-year period?
Well, we do, if you do the Bachelor of Health and you're moving in the PDHPE direction, there may be, obviously there are some units that involve basic anatomy and biology, but essentially that is a dedicated degree for PDHPE. You can, of course, at the master's level, we do offer the opportunities to do both, but the Pathways degrees are really dedicated to giving you different teaching areas and strength in that area. And what we use to guide us is also the New South Wales Education Standards Authority. You all know who NESA is. And NESA, not only do they work with you in schools to develop your HSC and syllabuses, but also they work with teachers to give us what you need to have that strong discipline knowledge in certain areas. Carol, did you want to add to that? I know it's not your area exactly.
So in a sense, yes, you focus on a discipline. So we do find that students sometimes come to university having loved areas that are quite diverse intellectually, and I hope that they can pull them together. And often that isn't possible in terms of the depth of knowledge that's needed. So science has a very broad and demanding curriculum, and it's probably difficult to mix PDHPE into that degree, I would think.
Yeah, I mean,
having said that, I would, if you are wanting to investigate HPE as your major and science as your second teaching area, that you keep in contact with Kay, but also seek academic course advice from the Bachelor of Health and Science HPE advisor as well, in terms of what subjects do you need or units do you need to take, so that you can build that area up. And when you transition into the Master of Teaching Secondary, if you need some additional undergraduate units in science, then you can take them at the same time as you are doing your master's degree as well, and have the both as a major teaching area.
Yeah, and just to, yes, I didn't highlight that, Katina. It's a great point that we do allow some further study if that's an area of need or interest. And you can do it concurrently, and that would still be under the HECS load. So that can be very attractive to do that concurrently within your master's program, not in your undergraduate. Okay. Another question, Reece?
Yeah, thanks. Next question. So this person graduated, I assume they mean graduated high school in 2018. How do I go about doing a teaching degree?
Well, you need to apply, I guess. That would be the first step through the Western portal, Carol.
Yes, so if you have finished your HSC, you can apply through the Western portal. And what you're looking for is one of the bachelor's degrees that is a pathway to secondary, depending on your area of interest. As Kay has indicated, there's a couple of different pathways, but first up, you must have a bachelor's degree. So your starting point on the road to being a teacher is to enrol in an appropriate bachelor's degree. Complete that and then move on to your master's degree.
If you mean graduated and you've actually completed an undergraduate degree, either at Western Sydney or another university, then you can apply for the Master of Teaching Secondary through Western Portal or UAC. Western Portal is better, of course. Your undergraduate degree will be assessed by the admissions and secondary academics, and you will be notified as to what would be your teaching areas and if you require any additional undergraduate units to meet the teaching areas as well.
Yeah, and then the direct application through Western Sydney is also free, which is a good thing to remember.
So much better than UAC.
Yeah, I think when I applied to university, I applied late and I had to pay I think it was like $200 for UAC.
Yeah, late fees. The late fees apply if you don't get it in on time. That's
So we'll move on to the next question. Someone has asked, is there pathways for ancient history teaching?
Aha. Well, one of the exciting things we're in the process of developing in our Bachelor of Arts pathway to secondary is that from next year we'll be adding a submajor in ancient history. So it becomes possible to be able to formally study ancient history at Western. Until now, we've just had modern history, but from next year we will have both a major in modern history and new submajors in both modern history and ancient history.
Which is very exciting. I know there's a lot of ancient historians out there as well as our modern students. The other thing to note from NESA again is that even if you are teaching or are qualified to be an ancient or a modern teacher, you do need one unit of the other side, so to speak. And that's because, as you might recall, back in year 7 and year 8, you do actually start with what is a civilization or a society, and you move back from ancient, obviously, through to medieval and then to more modern. So as a teacher, you obviously need to be able to have some breadth, but to have the minor in ancient history is really a wonderful opportunity.
And so
Kay's interest in history coming through there, that's for sure.
And indeed, we get many students who are totally passionate about their history. So would they be allowed to do both the major in modern history and an ancient history submajor? Or would NESA think they're overdoing it?
No, they would love it.
So now we can have all those history buffs just make an absolute beeline to Western to be able to do both ancient and modern history.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, definitely had a lot of calls to the call center, people asking to do if we can do ancient history. And yeah, so does that start from 2021?
Yes, it does.
Awesome. All right, cool. So we'll move on to the next question.
And Carol will be able to advise all those students.
Oh, yes.
I'll send Carol's email out to everybody then.
Look, and we're just hoping that, you know, if the students flock to it, we'll be able to do more than just a submajor, but we're going to start. And we all think it's a really exciting way for students who love their history to be able to develop such a good breadth of knowledge.
And in addition, the legal studies, Carol, I think you mentioned earlier, may be of interest. A lot of modern students and ancient choose legal as one of their HSC subjects.
Yes, and indeed the way the pathways in the Bachelor of Arts is designed, whilst you're only required to do your first and second teaching areas, we actually have 4 electives there, which means that a student could do another second teaching area so that they could do modern, ancient and legal studies if they wanted to. But most of all, we want people to do things they're passionate about, because I'm sure you know in the classroom, a teacher who's only read the textbook isn't exactly an exciting teacher, but someone who's really had a chance to fulfill their passions in their degrees as they move through, become really excited as teachers.
All right, cool. What would be a good major to accompany music in the Bachelor of Arts pathway course?
Okay, so music has to be your first teaching area, and we only teach music at our Penrith campus. So you need to be aware of the logistics of attending Penrith as a first starting point. Within that degree, you can then match it with any of our areas as a second teaching area, but Kay may have some ideas on the preferred area. I know some students go in for English and for history, but perhaps there's a magic mix.
You're on mute, Kay. All right, so from my perspective, I probably would recommend drama. A lot of people do performance alongside music, so there might be a drama that you could do, or there might be another arts area that visual arts that you might be interested in as well. All right.
And so in those cases, the students would be better applying for the straight Bachelor of Music, because they have much more depth of music, but also have a little bit more capacity to do what we call cross-institutional study, which is to pick up drama at another institution, because we don't teach drama at Western. So again, it's a matter of mixing and matching, but I think for music, because
so if Western doesn't offer it, Carol, if Western doesn't offer a particular units for a subject, okay, can you actually go take a course at Western and do other studies at another university, can you?
Yes, it depends which way you design your degree. So one of the reasons we keep our 4 electives in the BA pathway is so students can do another area at another university by cross-institutional study. And so that gives them the flexibility to follow their passion. They've got to do a little more hard work to find who teaches it and arrange to attend the classes. But yes, that's why Hiromi and I, as course advisors, would try and work with the student very early in their program to say, okay, if that's what you want, this is how you can fit it into this degree. But I do think with the NESA changes in music that students probably should look at the Bachelor of Music in terms of having it as a really powerful first teaching area.
Yes, Carol, I would agree with that. And at the master's level, however, we do offer those areas such as drama and even dance, which many institutions are not able to offer. So we do have that capacity as well. And I know we also offer languages, Hiromi. I don't know whether you wanted to talk a little bit about the language offerings that we have.
We offer Japanese, Chinese, Arabic, and Indonesian. And then our strength is to focus on, the 4 skills. And then we have got special sort of, subjects which cover only speaking. And then because in our 3rd year, course, we actually have got some native speakers coming in as well in some units. So that means we actually cater for from beginners to much more advanced people, because we do have interpreting courses as well. Yeah. So if you want to be a language teacher, welcome. We are here for you.
All right. And then just to follow on from that, the same person that asked the question has asked, so could I study a Bachelor of Music and still go on to a Master of Teaching?
Yes, because the minimum requirement to get into a master's is to have a bachelor's degree. So yes, that's possible. The difference with the pathways from coming in from outside with a degree is in the pathways we guarantee entry into the master's. Whereas if you've come from another university, then as we said earlier, you've got to apply to get into the master's program.
Yes, and the other exciting possibility will be the opportunity if you chose to do some of your education a little bit earlier, and that may accelerate your degree in the master's. So that's another opportunity that you may like to consider moving forward from 2021 onwards.
Yes, that will be the exciting new development in the Bachelor of Arts pathway to secondary, in that it will have 4 units that you'll be able to sort of explore what the master's is about and then get credit for them when you move into the master's.
Yeah, so there's lots of options depending on what you want to choose to study. Yeah. Reese, is there another one that we haven't covered?
Yeah, there's still a few to get through. Is there a limit to the number of subjects you can study for secondary teaching?
We have worked very hard, I think, to give as much possibility and opportunity. So we do have some of our teachers coming through who will end up with, for example, 3 teaching areas that Carol described earlier, and we cater for that. In some of the areas such as science, for example, you may find you even get 4 teaching areas because of the way we've packaged up our curriculum to allow you that breadth and scope. There's a bit more, face-to-face or online learning when you cover more areas, so you would take additional units. And so, for example, if you wanted to do 3 teaching areas, it would mean that your master's program would be 18 units in total. It doesn't mean it takes any longer. It just might mean that you have one semester where you study 5 units, or that you might choose to do a unit in summer. So we do offer that flexibility for those who want lots of teaching areas, which, it increases your employability, and that's what you want as a graduate teacher. So if you're going into human science environment and you can teach across 3 of those key areas, that's a great strength. Similarly, if you're in science and you're not just a bio teacher, which is still wonderful, but you're a biochem and physics teacher, then that opens up many possibilities for you as well.
Thanks. I lost where I was up to. Where is my next question? What bachelor courses would I take to teach society and culture, history and maths? I think we touched on history and maths, but do we have anything about society and culture?
We don't have a society and culture major or sub-major in the pathway to secondary. That was a decision from a few years ago, and obviously, as Kay has said, we keep trying to keep on top of what is required in the schools. So at the moment, for a student who wanted to do, history, maths and society and culture, I would recommend a major in modern history, a sub-major in maths, and use your 4 electives to take units from our area of society, cultural and social analysis. And in that, you'd focus particularly on a unit called research in culture, so that you would have the necessary skills if you ended up having to teach that you understood how to research culture. So again, that's the advantage of the flexibility we have with the elective component, that we can craft it for your interests. But again, we'd always follow what the guidelines were for teachers. It's one thing to do it for interest, but the other would be, would a school take someone with that type of mix of teaching areas?
Yes, so even though you may be interested in a lot of breadth, and that's a wonderful thing to pursue, you do need to think about what combinations in schools tend to work best and what you really want to teach. So, and society and culture is a wonderful area, And we do offer it in the Master of Teaching program, and every year or every semester, we have about 40 students who come from Western or perhaps outside Western with some of that background. But it's not taught except for year 11 and year 12. And in most schools, it's only taught one class. So, you know, you might need another stronger area such as history, for example, in that example, which is taught from year 7 and then all the way through to year 12. So a first teaching area generally is a subject that you can use to teach across the different years in a school and maximises your employability.
Excellent. So next question is, someone who's completed a Bachelor of Education 10 years ago at another university, can they get any credit towards the Masters?
So I'm going to tackle that one. If it's a bachelor's program, because that's considered a different, what we call Australian Qualifications Framework level. So if you think about it's a different level of study, you wouldn't be able to receive any advanced studying or credit, because a bachelor's level is slightly below a master's level. And if in order to get advanced studying or credit, you need to actually have equivalent and have met the same outcomes, and it has to be at the same Australian Qualifications Framework level. And the other thing about secondary, if you've done a Bachelor of Education, it is an initial bachelor's, so you would be eligible to apply for a master's program, but you'd need to seek some course advice, which we actually offer. So I send lots of emails back saying you might need these additional units because you may not have enough discipline knowledge, 3 years of study in at least one area. So that's something to note, whereas a Bachelor of Arts tends to, by its very structure, have a core discipline, or the other bachelors as well.
Awesome. So the next question, I think we've already answered it, but I'll just double check. Is there any pathways for teaching both ancient and modern history? That'll be yes from next year, right?
Yes, from next year.
Awesome, cool.
It's going through the committees now.
See, it's a good thing that you're in a 2020 graduating cohort after all. There's lots more happening for 2021, so it's going to be a much better year in terms of the opportunities.
So the next question is, would I be able to do a Bachelor of Science pathway to teaching to become a maths teacher?
You would probably do a Bachelor at the moment. You have the option through the Bachelor of Arts for maths, and then hopefully from next year, the Bachelor of Mathematics. The Bachelor of Science, while it does have some basic mathematic units, essentially is now dedicated to giving you a major in one science area. Every science area, you have to have, in a sense, a first teaching area. So you actually have to have a lot more discipline now. And typically when you teach science, you teach across the sciences, including those in year 11 and year 12. So it is actually a science degree. And that's why we're hoping to have the Bachelor of Mathematics degree come online.
And that would be true also that, well, we have that's one of the reasons we just have the maths major in the arts degree, because it's not possible to package enough maths in the old science degrees. So with the new Bachelor of Maths coming on next year, students would probably be better placed there. But we do find that a lot of students are tempted into maths and haven't actually looked at the prerequisites for the units to study maths at university level. And I know Hiromi and I have both been dealing with very disappointed students whose maths at the HSC was not actually of a level to enable them to do the high level maths that the university degree requires. So it would be important for maths for students to look at the handbook and look at the subjects you study and look at the prerequisites for band 5 of maths for a number of those units. And even with coaching, we've found students are not necessarily able to pick that up.
So we'll move on to the next question. Somebody's wondering how many units a Bachelor of Arts pathway to secondary in Japanese has.
This is Hiromi.
Yeah, Okay, so we have got two level 1 units, which is for the first year. That's for the beginners. And then we have got 4 second year, units. And then we have 6 third year level units. So plus 2 additional units you can count as a part of Japanese major. So that means you need 8 units to make up a major. So you can start from the third year if you are really advanced. And then if you are not, if you are a beginner, you start from the first year. So how many?
Still 8.
Yeah,
6,
late for a
10,
major.
12. We have got, 8 units for major, but we have got 12 units in Japanese language.
And you do actually talk to the students to make sure they're put into the right level when they start.
Yes, that's correct. Yep. Those people who have done some Japanese are supposed to, contact us, and then we actually, rate you, and then let you know which level you can start from.
So someone's asked, what is the minimum level of English I'd need to complete in years 11 and 12 for teaching history?
Oh,
There is no minimum level of English. Everyone has to do English as part of the HSC, and you need an ATAR obviously to come in via the normal pathway. But there is no level of English. Clearly, if you're strong in the humanities, it tends to transfer. And so having good written skills and analysis skills would be helpful, Carol, wouldn't it?
It would indeed. And humanities, a Bachelor of Arts degree, does require a lot of reading and writing. So we do understand that students come from quite diverse backgrounds. So one of our compulsory units in first year is called Foundations of Academic English, which focuses very much on giving students a sort of level playing field of understanding the requirements of written English at university level.
And Carol, just to add to that, sometimes I know from my own family experience that you can't choose everything that you want to choose to study for the HSC. And you may not, for example, you might have only been given the option to study modern and you really wanted to try ancient. You don't have to have done a prereq in your HSC year. You may not have even done history, but you may want to pursue that. So I just thought it was important that we chat about that too.
Yes, we require no prerequisites from any of your schooling in terms of any units in the Bachelor of Arts. You come in and we assume that in first year you will do the basics. If you've already done them and excelled, then you'll get high distinctions. And if you haven't done them and you work hard, you may still get high distinctions.
So yeah, so if you're doing a standard English, you are very eligible, just as if you were doing advanced English, to come in, or doing ESL English as well. So all of them are appropriate.
We actually do get a lot of questions of students who want to be ESL teachers, and where in our pathways to teaching, that isn't necessarily an outcome, is it?
Well, we're moving. Again, Western Sydney, we're very adaptable. So in the master's program, we do offer a curriculum area called Englishes other than, and EALD, so ESL. Sometimes in other institutions, it's called TESOL as well. So we do offer that. So if students, Carol took an English major in literature and so forth, and some linguistics and language units, they would be eligible to add that into an English and the master's level.
So for example, we have students who might do Japanese as their major and English as their sub-major. They could then follow up with that in their masters?
Possibly. In order to be an ESL teacher, NESA have sort of made it a requirement that you have English as a strong background and then the additional linguistics. So sometimes a language has many linguistical elements, but the ESL syllabus in schools is actually an English syllabus for students from non-English speaking backgrounds. So that's where the English and linguistics is possibly a stronger combination. Not saying that you couldn't also have the languages as well, but you'd need some foundation in English.
So in that case, students would take our major in English, which is English literature, and in the pathways to secondary, they're allowed, with English as their first teaching area, to have as a second teaching area either linguistics or creative writing. And then if they wanted to follow up perhaps with their home language, they could use their electives for that.
Yeah, and there's lots of possibilities, and language teachers obviously have very strong linguistic backgrounds, and we recognise that too. So we've got 5 more minutes, I think. Is there an important question that someone's really keen to know the answer to?
Let's have a look. This is something we haven't touched on. Are there any pathways for teaching technology subjects? So they put some acronyms in: IST, IPT. I'm not sure what they stand for there.
So they're computing, I believe. So the main pathway is through the Bachelor of Graphic Development and Design. That's our main pathway through. And there may, if you want other technology areas, you may want to consider that cross-institutional option as well. That degree qualifies you normally for design and technology, an area also called graphics and multimedia, which fits within the computing key learning area. So that would be the type of degree. Carol, did you have anything to add on that one?
Yes, that you would be best placed in a degree other than not Bachelor of Arts pathway. We don't include anything that would help in those areas. But your new degrees sound like they would be helpful.
Yeah, so there is a dedicated pathways, but just be aware that the main technology subject that is taught 7 through to 12 is actually design and technology. And so that pathway gives you that, as well as the graphics and multimedia and the computing and those areas. That's the pathway.
Great. Is there any specific scholarships available for secondary teaching?
Well, I'm not sure about I know that outside the university, the Department of Education offer scholarships which support you throughout your program and then offer you employment opportunities. There are obviously, there may be others as well, and there's certainly support from the industry, and they're often in certain areas of need. So currently the department has scholarships if you apply for them for areas such as English, some of the STEM or science and the technology areas. There's also scholarships for those students who want to apply through the Department of Education to do rural teaching and take up opportunities. And I probably didn't mention that in our professional experience, we do offer rural placements to students who want to have that opportunity, and we're very supportive of that. So that might be something for consideration.
Yeah, and then someone's asked, I think it's back to the mathematics. Will the Bachelor of Mathematics be available to apply for now or no?
I understand it hasn't been approved yet, so it may be something they need to wait for it to be available. I'm not sure about the approval timeframe for that, but it is certainly getting very close.
Okay, so it might be that they might be able to apply for it for mid-year maybe.
Possibly next year.
There's a lot of questions still here. I'm trying to figure out one that maybe we haven't touched on.
We can go for another 15 minutes, I think.
Sure.
Okay, cool. All right, well, we'll just go to the next question. Are there any pathways for teaching maths and PDHPE?
Again, not so much. I think we've covered it. As Carol's mentioned, we've basically designed these degrees to give you maximum depth in a discipline area that meets what we call the NESA requirements for teaching. And so one of the benefits of that is that, you are making sure that your degree is customized so that when you finish, you actually get that teaching area accredited. because even though you may choose certain subjects, they may not necessarily be the subjects that NESA requires. And NESA requires certain content knowledge that you can teach. So if you're going to be a maths teacher, you can't just do all stats. You have to do, for example, linear algebra and calculus. So you have to do a range of things within the discipline. The same as in English. You might think, I want to be a great writer, and you might want to do lots of writing areas within English, but NESA actually requires you to do literature areas and certain levels of that as well. So within each of these degrees, what academics at Western Sydney University have done is put together a course that offers you choice, but also gives you strength in the areas. So it's guaranteed that you will become qualified.
Yeah. So the next question is, what is the pathway for mature age students? So for example, someone who's finished part of a degree and maybe completed a chef apprenticeship.
Okay, so probably for people who have changing degrees, one of the first point is a bachelor's degree. And the way in which we account for prior study is what is called advanced standing. So again, this is important where a degree has free choice electives. We would use those to take account of relevant academic qualifications that someone has started but hasn't completed the degree or diploma or whatever they were involved with. That is dependent on them providing advice, copies of their transcripts, and we then assess the relevant areas of study. But you really need the electives. Unless it's, for example, you've started a bachelor's degree in English somewhere else and have stopped, in which case obviously we would look at the English that you had done at another university and try to give you credit for some of our units for that. In terms of people changing from careers, such as being a chef, we have had a number of students who've done that. They often want to do another teaching area we haven't spoken about, which is food technology. We don't have that as one of our sub-majors, but we have it as one of our options. So the difficulty there might be whether you'd be able to do that and get prior standing for your studies. And really, if we're going to give you prior standing, you've only got space for 2 teaching areas.
Yeah, and there are some Western Sydney University degrees offered out at the Hawkesbury campus, that if food tech is your area and that you may want to pursue those options firstly and then come into the Master of Teaching at a later point.
Yeah.
But they're not pathways into it.
No, they're not. They're
food
specialist
technology
degrees.
Which would give you a range of backgrounds in food tech and some science, I would guess. And then you would apply to go into the Masters. So it's the difference of not being a pathway directly into it.
If someone completes a teaching degree here in Australia, can they teach overseas?
Yes, they can, but again, they'd have to meet whatever requirements from the overseas authority, and obviously taking your transcripts and all the NESA documentation would be, but it is recognised and many people do, and Australian teachers are very well regarded, but again, you need to meet whatever the international requirement is.
Right. Is the Bachelor of Science and the Bachelor of Mathematics accredited?
All the Pathways courses are. We go through extensive accreditation through NESA, and that process can often take 12 months or longer. And all of our programs and pathways are accredited through NESA. I want to reassure everyone about that.
Okay, great. So this person says, I'm a mature age student interested in teaching music as a subject in secondary school. Will doing a music degree help? And would I also have to do a teaching degree? So we touched on that before, I think. So they do the Bachelor of Music.
Yes.
And then into the Masters of Teaching Secondary?
Yeah.
That's correct, yes.
But students should be aware that for the Bachelor of Music, entry is by audition. So you need to be able to have the technical competence.
Yes, and we do have a strong music program at the master's level. Every semester we have quite a strong group of music teachers coming through. So there is the possibility once you've got that undergraduate to go through into the master's.
Is there a path? Is there any pathways for teaching biology?
Yes, through the Bachelor of Science. And in addition to biology, you would also be able to choose different things that would give you strength in some other areas. Biology would be your major, but you may also do some basic chem, maybe a unit in physics, and maybe a cross-disciplinary unit, which would give you possibly investigating science. And I think Earth and Environment, I should have mentioned that as well.
Yeah. So would that be the Bachelor of Science pathway to teaching?
Yes.
Secondary?
Yes.
Yeah. And
it's a really good degree because it's offering you all of that scope in science, which is wonderful.
Great. And it looks like the last question. Is there a unit which connects to studies of religion in Year 12 that you can complete with the history units?
Yes, so one of our second teaching areas is called Studies of Religion. This was new this year and we're hoping we'll be able to build up the content in it. It's a cross-disciplinary sub-major that draws on our colleagues who work in Islamic studies and in sociology. And so it pulls together a number of areas. One of the problems with a cross-disciplinary sub-major is that it's dependent on getting everybody on the right page with the offerings that you can do it. But again, for some of those, we can always look at cross-disciplinary, cross-institutional enrolment if it's needed. So yes, you could do history and studies of religion.
And we offer that in the master's program as well, Studies of Religion, which has a strong candidature across New South Wales. So a lot of schools offer it, Studies of Religion 1 and 2, and in some Christian and Catholic schools, it's a compulsory, at least Studies of Religion 1.
And would students who wanted to teach in non-government schools need to do additional studies for example, the Catholic system?
There's two important, I guess, I'll just define it. There's two areas of study. For example, in Catholic schools, there is a subject called Catholic School Studies, or RE, Religious Education, and that requires, for example, a postgraduate certificate or further study. And that's provided elsewhere, not at Western Sydney University. But Studies of Religion is a NESA accredited subject that you can undertake for a HSC and for an ATAR. And that is the one that we offer and that you would be qualified to teach in. And that is also taught in Catholic and other Christian schools as well, and other religious schools entirely, because it's actually across all different religions and it includes, you know, a range of different areas. So that is the one that you would be qualified for, but the RE is a separate area that you could go on and study elsewhere.
Right. There was one question that somebody asked. It looked like somebody, one of the attendees answered it, but we'll just double check that it's the correct answer. If I don't meet the ATAR requirements in my HSC, are there still ways I can get into my course? I want to do secondary biology teaching.
That's probably a question for our student central team, isn't it?
Yes.
And pathways.
So yes, there's a range of opportunities that the university offers in terms of pathways in from for school leavers, particularly this year. So I think refer it to enrolments and the student.
Maybe, so our contact service centre would normally answer that one. I would say it would be through the college, maybe. So if you didn't get an ATAR at all, we do have extended diplomas, which are, they're 16-month diplomas. You could do a diploma in science extended. So you don't need an ATAR to get into it. goes for 16 months. And after you complete it, you'd move into the second year of a Bachelor of Science. And then from there, you could apply for the Bachelor of Science pathway to teaching secondary. I think that would be the way I would go about it.
Yeah.
I think we've answered everything. There was one person who asked a question, but they had to go to another session. Oh no, here's a new one. Oh, we've kind of already answered it. If I want to teach overseas, do I need specific qualifications?
Yeah.
So yeah, just checking with the
Yeah.
whatever country you want to teach in and their
Yes.
teaching authorities and
Yes.
cool. Otherwise, I guess that's everything that's been asked. Was there anything anybody wanted to add?
No, I think it's been a really good discussion across such a broad range of secondary teaching opportunities. So I think what we've been able to flesh out in this session is that there's endless ways in which you can become a high school teacher, and many different ways of following your areas of interest to become a teacher.
And I highly recommend teaching. So if you are considering it, then, you know, it's great to know that you've got so much choice as well.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, there's a lot of option with teaching. There's all these pathway courses that we have. You've got the if you want to do secondary, primary, birth to 5, birth to 12. There's quite a lot of option we have at Western Sydney if you want to do teaching. But yeah, it's been great presenting with everybody. I believe there's only about 4 minutes left before it'll get cut off. But yeah, thanks everyone for joining us today. If you do want any further information, everyone watching at home, you can speak to us on there's a live chat function on the Open Day website if you do have any further questions. Otherwise, feel free to reach out and maybe ask for any of the presenters' email addresses if you have any other questions. But yeah, otherwise, thanks everyone for joining us.
Yes. And we look forward to seeing people next year.
Indeed. Apply. All right,
awesome.
everybody.
Thanks, Kay. Thanks, Carol. Thanks, Hiromi.
Okay. Thank you very much.